Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Well, all right, everybody. Welcome to the Sports Addict Fantasy Football Show, Week 3 edition. It's September 23rd, 2022, and we're here to talk all things Week 3 fantasy football. This is our first episode of this here fantasy football show after a couple of, what have yous, we'll call them.
False starts.
What's that?
False starts.
False. Look at you. Look at you. I'm Clark Lorensen. Al and I have been podcasting together for quite a long time. My partner, Al Larcher, he's been winning some DraftKings the last few years, and we're here today to talk to you. We're here for the rest of the season to talk to you about daily fantasy football and maybe some year-long in there as well. But here he is, Al Larcher.
Well, thank you, Clark. It's week 3 of the NFL, and I think today we're going to tackle some tournament plays, looking at the DraftKings slate ahead. I play in the 150 max, which I won in 2020. The 50-cent game, I turned that into $15,000, taking first in that game. I like playing in the 20 max, the $3 game. I believe that's the play action. $50,000, I think, first place prize. I've gotten as high as 7th in that tournament. And then I used to play the $20 max. I did take first place in that tournament as well. There's a couple of those. But I think mine had a field size of around, it was a little over 100,000 people in that game. And last 2 weeks, I've been in the top 1 percentile of my tournament plays. I'm getting teams in the 1 percentile every week for the last 2 weeks. So things are good. I'm not an expert. I'm not a professional. I play low stake games, but I've turned that into over 30,000. I've taken $200 and turned it into over $30,000 in winnings. So I kind of know what I'm doing, but I not really. I mean, I still guess and get lucky, but for the most part, I do break things down pretty well. And so we're going to talk about it. Currently, I'm ranked 60th in the Scott Fish Bowl. So I got some year-long stuff going, but I'm projected to do pretty horrible this week because things aren't going to go my way as they've done. I built a Buffalo stack, which has been carrying me, obviously, because they've been dominant. And Buffalo is going to be on the main slate this week, 13-game main slate on DraftKings. Not going to talk any duel. I don't like playing FanDuel. I got suspended from DraftKings once, so they forced me to play FanDuel. But as long as they allow me to play DraftKings, we're going to stick with that.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted to ask you that real quick. It just you spent a couple weeks playing it, and it wasn't doing it for you. So now we're back to DraftKings. I like the DraftKings game as well.
Yeah, I feel like, I think there's bigger tournaments on DraftKings. I like playing the larger the field size, the better I tend to do.
That makes sense.
As a matter of fact, I've just started recently this year. I'm playing the single entry games. I'm playing, the $50 single entry game. And I made my money last week. I got to out of 6,000 people, I think I got to 538, which gave me $100 on the 50. So I doubled my money, but nowhere near the top where I want to be and where I'm going to get. But it is a different learning experience playing on a smaller, against 6,000 people versus playing against, 100,000 people or 400,000 people. And so I like to play, the larger field tournaments because you get to take more chances. But I think what we're going to do is we're just going to with the games that have the highest over and under, just kind of break down these within those games. And we're only going to go for about an hour. So if we run out of, why don't you set a 15-minute warning? If there's any questions, if we got anything going in the last 15 minutes, we could kind of cover kind of a speed round. But we're going to get through as many down the over and under list as possible. I think the big game this week, the tournament game, the exciting game, I've optimized 150 teams right now. They're not set to where I want them to be. They don't have all the rules that I like to design. I haven't made my pairings. I haven't set my stacks yet. So it's a very basic 150 run, but it kind of gives me an idea where ownership is going. And right now, Stephon Diggs, Amon St. Brown, those are wide receivers that my model is liking and attacking frequently. And it looks like the punt this week is going to be Irv Smith of the Minnesota Vikings at tight end. He's just a great value. He's projecting very high. He's 3,100 tight end position. He's projecting for around 10-point ceiling, 7-point projection, which is pretty good at that price point. I think his true ceiling could be about 15 points, and yeah, so he's going to be in a lot of lineups this week. Irv Smith at of the Minnesota Vikings at tight end, but we'll look at the games, and then we'll look at those players within. There's just some ideas once you start getting to building. If you want some money savings, Irv Smith is the way to go, although he is going to catch some ownership because those guys always do. So the over and unders, the top teams with the over and under right now at 52.5 is the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, the Detroit Lions, and the Minnesota Vikings. And both of them are very exciting games. Both of them have a lot of fantasy equity. I think the game this week, and I can't wait to talk about it, is going to be Philadelphia, Washington. I think people are going to be there, but I also think that's the best value. In my 150 projections, my ceiling games of like the top 20, like 80% of them are Washington and Philadelphia. But let's start with the big one. Let's start with the big money one. Let's start the one that's going to cost you the most. It's going to have a lot of ownership. The Buffalo Bills projecting to put up 29 points against the Miami Dolphins. This game's juicy, man. It's exciting. You have Josh Allen at 8,200.
Yeah.
Which
in that Miami comeback it's just enticing with that, even with the Buffalo defense. Go ahead with Allen. Yeah.
Well,
8,200.
You have Josh Allen at 8,200. So, realistically speaking, if you stack, you're going to want to get the equity of Diggs. Yeah. So now you're absorbing a lot of ownership, absorbing a lot of money. Stephon Diggs, 7,700. It's at 6,300. He may not even be 100% right now. And this could be a good week for Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox is a good pivot off of ownership. Right now, he's only projected at he's 5% projected ownership. So if you're looking to create a Buffalo stack, and especially if you're double stacking, you're almost going to have to play Dawson Knox in it. And I think it's a pretty good play. But, at that point, you've now spent $20,000 of your salary. You're taking on some pretty heavy ownership. And if you want to do a run back, obviously you got Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. You're probably going to want to go with the cheat in there and go with the 6,800 and go Jalen Waddle over Tyreek Hill. Both of them's ownership projections are about the same. Both of them ceiling are similar. Tyreek Hill, obviously, the better ceiling, the better projection, but only slightly. And you're talking almost $1,000 more off of Waddle. So Waddle might be the good play there. So if I were building a stack, I would probably go Allen, Diggs, Knox, Waddle in that game from the Buffalo side. If you want to get creative, I don't think there's any run equity in this game. I don't like the running back. I think this is a game that you're going to want to see a lot of passing. Buffalo has a committee of running backs. Isn't going to run Buffalo. Buffalo is against the run. So it's just a game to avoid the run. You're going to want to find your running backs elsewhere. So once you get to that, you're only looking at a couple passing options. Those are, of course, the ones we went through: Diggs, Gabe Davis, Dawson, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I'm not big on Gabe Davis coming off of an injury, although I probably will have him in the mix of some lineups just to kind of give myself some different options, different looks at the game. Attacking it from the Miami side, doable as well. Last week I made the mistake of not double stacking the Miami Dolphins. And my thinking was, I was like, I take one of those wide receivers and have a hell of a week with him. What I didn't foresee was Tua throwing an ungodly amount of times. What were we at in attempts here? He threw the ball 50 times, 36
Wow.
completions, 469 yards, almost 500 yards. So obviously both receivers ate, and that was a hell of a stack last week. And by the way, only 3% of the field played Tua. So
Yeah,
that
that
was
makes a
good.
lot of sense.
It was a good team to have for sure. It actually wasn't my high scorer last week, but I think it won a lot of people a lot of money, and they're going to be chasing it this week um, because I mean this game just seems very juicy. But the ownership on Tua is still projected under 5% right now. So if you want to go the game, everyone's going to be playing Josh Allen, and rightfully so. But Josh Allen's expensive, so you could go Tua at 6,100. You could go, uh, Tyreek Hill or Waddle or both. I would honestly, I'd probably play both. That gets you to 20,500. So now it's adding up, but you're getting a lot higher of a ceiling than you are with Diggs and a tight end. And then you run it back. You may play Dawson Knox in the run back at the 4,100 just to make your team playable to get to a ceiling. Otherwise, if you play Diggs as the run back, he's 100. You're now talking about an average of under $5,000 per player left, and you still have two running back positions. You still have to fill the flex. You still have to fill the tight end, and of course, you could punt at the defense position, which will raise your average up a little bit. But yeah, it's gonna be really hard to do with Diggs. Where if you play Knox, and this is putting a lot of weight on Knox, man. I don't know if he's going to get any touchdowns, and he needs touchdowns. That puts you a little over $5,000 average to spend on your remaining players, and it fills your tight end slot. So, yeah, I mean, this game is nice. There's a lot of good plays there, but it's expensive. It's expensive, and there's going to be ownership attached to it, which tends to make these things very ugly. In massive field tournaments, tournaments of over 1,000 players, such as I don't think this is going to be a game that's going to lend you a lot of money. In tournaments, and tournaments 6,000 players where you don't have to get the best. You don't have to get the huge pop. You don't have to have Hogan slamming Andre to get the 93,000 people cheering for you, and you just need a little bit of the rub. This game is probably pretty safe to play or stack around. Um, Also, I'm not a big fan of Lamar players this week. And I would say maybe you could pivot to him off of Josh Allen and actually put Lamar Jackson as in the Josh Allen role and have him be the quarterback of the stack. But that's not going to work because he's $8,000. I thought he was a little cheaper than that. So scratch that idea. Bad idea.
All right. Yep.
Let's see. I'm just going to hit
I like hearing
Miser
you
here.
talk this through a little bit. Is what I like to hear there, Al.
Oh yeah,
it works. It helps all of us here.
So I'm gonna hit the optimizer on the ceiling for this game right now, with Tua as my quarterback, and Hill and Waddle as my wide receivers, and Dawson Knox as my run back. It's gonna get me to a ceiling of about 196. And your running backs are going to be kind of chalky. David Montgomery, Miles Sanders. I really like Miles Sanders this week, by the way. We're not going to talk a lot of running back because we're going to be going through games. But when it comes to the best play at the running back position at the best price, I like Miles Sanders. His ownership's about half of David Montgomery. David Montgomery is going to be very chalky this week. A lot of people are going to want to play him in that shit game. Bears Texans. But I would.
Why am I so intrigued by that? Is it that because we're from Chicago?
Yeah,
Is that
I mean, we're Bears fans. We're homers.
Yeah,
I was looking at my quarterback pool. I'm down to 12 quarterbacks, and one of them is Justin Fields. There's no reason I should be playing Justin Fields this week. So, But again, when I won my biggest tournament, I did it with Drew Lock as quarterback. So, maybe this is the Justin Fields week.
Just quickly though, like, are we going to have to rely on Fields in the Larcher and Lorensen collective? We're in a high stakes game together that we co-own. Are we good to go with Herbert?
My opinion, well, today's Friday morning. We're doing this at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
The last injury report's going to come out tonight, Friday, this afternoon. I'm going to be watching closely to it. My suspicion is he's on a long week. They played the Thursday game, so he got a little bit of
Oh,
a mini
yeah.
bye. He's rested. I think he's going to get the juice. I think they're going to drug him up, and drag him out there, and he's going to play some football because he's a
That's
baller.
football. There it
Kid's a
is.
baller. So I'm projecting Herbert's going to play. The other big question is I don't know what's going on with Mike Evans. I haven't seen. I tried Googling it, and I'm not going to get any information. I know there was an appeal. I thought the appeal hearing was Tuesday, and I don't know how that went.
Google
But
hasn't mentioned it. Doesn't mention anywhere if he's been
yeah,
if it's been
if
granted, if it's been stayed for a week. Like,
right. I'm going under the assumption he's not playing, and he's going to serve a suspension this week. So, but that's another thing I'm monitoring. Um, Swift. I'm a little concerned with Swift. I heard Christian McCaffrey was on the injury report today. These are just a couple things I'm watching, but you're going to have a lot of information after this program whenever you're listening to it, because it's probably going to be later in the evening on Friday, and you can go ahead and look at go to Adam Schefter, maybe look at some inactives, look at injury reports, and Slade, who were partial participants, who were full participants, and kind of get an idea of what's going on there. Okay, so there's two games with the same over and under. The second one being, Detroit, Minnesota, I believe is what it was. Let me just double check here. Yeah, Detroit, Minnesota. This game, look, you're getting some good savings at quarterback. This is the second highest over and under on the week. Both these teams pace exceptionally well. They're up-tempo teams. They're looking to pass the ball, and you have access to the sun god, Armand St. Brown. So, right now the ownership projections have both these quarterbacks projecting under 10% ownership. Generally like a high ownership quarterback's about 15%. So right now, Cousins is projecting at about 10%. Goff is projecting at about 5%. Uh, I much prefer Kirk Cousins to Jared Goff, but I do think Jared Goff, it does have some appeal. He's 5,800. He's probably one of the cheapest quarterbacks on the board that could get you a realistic ceiling of almost 30 points. Against Minnesota, which, man, they're hurting in their secondary right now. And, everybody's talking about it. And surprisingly, ownership projections aren't really Brown right now. He's priced up to 7,200. And there's now you're in the AJ Brown territory. So, would you rather have AJ Brown or would you rather have Armand St. Brown? And the answer is Armand St. Brown. Look, a lot of people don't like being late to the party. I've been on St. Brown, and a lot of people have been on St. Brown going back to last season, last 5-6 games. The guy has just been on fire, and it's because he has such a massive target share. I saw Michael Leone of Establish the Run. He put a tweet out
there
there.
it is. The
Yeah.
tweet that's there about how his last 8 games with the target share 20. Do you want me to just rattle it off since I got her here?
Yeah, go.
Yeah,
Go
week 13 of 2021 this starts. 29.3, 30.8, 42.3, 31.4, 29.7, 31.3, 32.4, and 35.3 through last week 2.
And just to put that in perspective, last year, in the last couple of years, the highest guy with the market share has been Devontae Adams with the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. If you think about it, Aaron Rodgers has one receiver in Green Bay, and that was Adams. And he threw the ball to him. His target share was about 30%.
Wow.
So you're talking about Devontae Adams type equity. And to put it in realistic numbers, that was 12 targets week 2. That was 12 targets week 1. Last week last year, it was 10 targets, 10 targets, 11 targets, 11 targets, 12 targets, 12 targets. And this has put up 24 DraftKings points 15, 23, 26, 38, 29. Week 1 this year, 20. And then week 2 this year, 42. So the sun god has arrived. He's risen, my friends. And it's time to get a little suntan lotion and go out there and just bask in his glory. Bask in this man's glory as much as you can. Do not jump off the bandwagon. Play him in cash games. Play him in tournament games. Play him anywhere you could play him. The value is there. The production is there. And the opportunity, I mean, is endless. And he's in a good spot again this week with the Minnesota Vikings. And the projections are, and the ownership, you know, you could see a lot. And if you don't have a tool to find ownership out, you know, I suggest a run, but there's some free sites out there that actually show projections. I mean, the less money you spend, the worse your projections probably are, the more generic and basic. But a lot of times projections kind of tell you what the field thinks is going to happen. And looking at projections on this game, they think that Minnesota is going to run and run a lot with Delvin Cook, who's been absent the last 2 weeks of the year. You know, if you drafted Delvin Cook early in your year-long leagues, you know he's been kind of a disappointment. But the Detroit Lions are terrible at defense, especially at stopping the run. And this is a game for Delvin Cook to cook. And so it makes sense to. But being a good tournament player is walking away from what the field is projecting and going in the other direction. And being contrarian doesn't mean, you know, playing Jay Shark at 100% in this game because lowest owned projected wide receiver. No, that's a bad play. Being contrarian just means doing what the field isn't doing. And right now, Justin Jefferson is $9,300, and only 6% of the field is playing him because his price is so high. Well, this game has a lot of cheap plays and a cheap quarterback and a good stack. I don't think you need to double stack the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think you need to double stack Kirk Cousins. I mean, if you want to get crazy, I was gonna say maybe you do it with Cook, but that's dangerous. As mentioned earlier, I think Irv Smith is going to be the tight end of the week. He's in this game. He's only projecting at about 10% owner. I think that's wrong. It's going to be a lot high percent ownership. Just because he's the right fit. Like you just look at all the options in that price point, he's the guy to play, and he makes a lot of sense. So you're really going to have to get creative in finding players that aren't projecting well, or I'm sorry, they're projecting well but don't have a lot of ownership at the running back position. You cannot play the chalk running back plays if you play the stack. But I think that the stack is worth investing in. This might be definitely win you the dollars. This is one that could definitely win a smaller field tournament as well. I think it plays into both very well. You know, if you want to get crazy, man, if you want to roll the dice, you want to go a little wacko, that Jared Goff stack is right there for you. You know, Jared Goff, St. Brown. I might even consider playing Jamal Williams, a running back in there. A pivot off of Swift, who's been banged up. He has the questionable tag, and Jamal Williams is getting tough. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's getting some good red zone looks too. So he might be good, you know, because he's going to have zero ownership. He's going to be under 5% owned. That could be crazy. That could be a stupid play, but it's one to consider. 12 rushing attempts last week. Week 1, he had 11 rushing attempts. By the way, 2 touchdowns week 1 against the Philadelphia Eagles. So, you know, there is a ceiling for this guy, and he's cheap and he's unowned in what is otherwise an expensive stack. But I mean, you could try to squeeze in Swift route because you're saving a lot of money on Goff, and then you know you do St. Brown, you could do Shark. I think Josh Reynolds is able, you know, under 5% ownership. DJ Shark under 5% ownership. Adam Thielen's in a great spot. Under 5% ownership. He has a clear ceiling, and they could really try to double cover Justin Jefferson and Thielen, who nobody wants to touch. Could be a pretty good play. So, like, basically everybody in this game is playable, and it's about getting creative with ownership, and it's about trying to get those studs in too. Like, don't give up your ceiling to be too creative. Don't get so contrarian that you forget about the major parts. I do that sometimes. I'll get so excited about the B players, I forget about the A players, and the A players at the end of the day are the ones who have the realistic ceiling. Justin Jefferson realistically could put over 30 points up. Armand St. Brown could maybe get to 30, but he's definitely could do over 20, 25 range. Those guys have real ceilings, and they could get you to those 200 points you need to win a tournament. And so, yeah, I like this game a lot. It's not super pricey. It's not as pricey as the Buffalo game, but it does have the same over and under. You have more to play less owned players in this game. It's a sexy game. I would say don't play Dalvin Cook if you're playing this other games. If you feel he's a good play, absolutely play him. Like if you are doing a crazy ass Bears stack, in the Houston Texans, you're not spending any money anywhere. You could spend up and get Dalvin Cook, and you could get another chalky running back, and you can make some magic there with those cheap quarterbacks. But in this game stack, I think he's the guy to pivot away from because he is projected right now as the highest owned player of this game. So, actually, going to be the highest player. And I stand corrected. Armand St. Brown is the highest projected player in this game. But I think he's only projecting at about 15% ownership, which is just way too low. I mean, he should be 20+ ownership. So I'm gonna be overweight on him. He's not a chalk I'm gonna want to fade. I don't think that's that crazy of a chalk to begin with. So yeah, this game is definitely playable. I do again like it better than Buffalo Miami. Buffalo Miami is a lot sexier. A lot of people are going to be wanting to play that game. I think this game, it's not going to get overlooked, but I don't think it's going to be played as much as the Buffalo game. And there's a lot of good value there, and there's top shelf players. So yeah, play this game.
Awesome.
All right, let's just go down to the next over and under. And over and unders because you want to play the game equity is. You want to play the games where the touchdowns are. The higher the over under, the more Vegas believes that the game is going to be a high scoring affair, and that's where fantasy happens. That's where the good fantasy value comes in. Why isn't Indianapolis? Oh, because I'm not playing the Indianapolis quarterback. Okay.
Right.
If I skip an over and under, that just means I'm not interested in any of their quarterbacks because I'm looking at my quarterback list, the players I'm playing, and so Patrick Mahomes and the Colts are next up. I think a lot of people are going to play. This game it's just kind of, it has a high over and under, but it's just kind of ugly.
Do you mind if I ask the Indianapolis game? This game, you said you weren't interested in Indianapolis much, but you're still interested in talking about this game. Like, is Taylor? Because I drafted Taylor first in a year-long league.
Right.
Where's he at? Like, what are you doing with him? Is he playable in this game? What's going on here?
Well, I mean, if the Colts are to win this game, they're going to run. They're going to run a lot, and they're going to control the clock, and they're going to want to slow this game down to a screeching halt. And the way to do that is with Jonathan Taylor. He's definitely playable. He's $9,000. He's a guy. Again, I'm talking game stacks. I'm approaching games through game stacks here. He's a guy I'm playing in those cheap stacks of those other games. If I'm playing a Trevor Lawrence stack, I'm going to think about putting a Jonathan Taylor in it. If I'm playing, God forbid, a Marcus Mariota stack, and going up against the pitiful Seattle Seahawks, I'm I'm probably going to put a Jonathan Taylor in that game, or a Christian McCaffrey, or yeah, Eckler. I don't think Eckler's in it. Eckler's, man, that's just it's a hard nut to crack right now. He's definitely playable, definitely has a ceiling similar to those guys, but his floor is pretty realistic as well. So, although in my model, Eckler is projecting better than any of those guys, Christian McCaffrey is projecting the worst. Jonathan Taylor, comparable to Eckler in projection. Um, Eckler's $1,000 less than those two guys, which is why I think he's projecting so well. But if you're going to spend up, if you're gonna spend up to be contrarian, those guys are around 5% ownership. People aren't going to touch them. I think people are going to be more excited to play Justin Jefferson. I think they're going to be more excited to play Armand St. Brown, less money. I think they're going to want to play Cup. I think they're going to want to play Cooper Cup. If they're going to spend that much money at, he almost $10,000. That's going to be a hard guy to get any lineup this week. Although right now, 10% ownership. So it's interesting how people are going to do that. But yeah, those guys are all playable. They're all guys with the top ceilings. And you want guys with the highest ceilings in your roster. You just want to pick the right one, which, easier said than done. I don't know that Jonathan Taylor is the right one. But he has potential to be. McCaffrey this week better than I like Jonathan Taylor. $200 less on McCaffrey. Same ceiling, same projection. Comparable floor. And going up against the Saints. The Saints, man. I guess you could get it through the air, through passing with McCaffrey. But anyways, yeah. So those guys are all playable. As far as the stack goes, I'm not interested in any of the Indianapolis Colts from that side of it. It might be contrarian to do so. If you really want to get crazy, you could go and you could play in, but the dude's 7 years old. What is your ceiling? Game is running, so I'm not going to look at playing any of the Colts side. So I'm going to stack it from the Kansas City side. Obviously, I take Patrick Mahomes, and I'm going to stack him with Travis Kelce. Kelsey's in a fantastic spot this week, and he could break the slate. He's a tight end who's just going to get. He's the number one wide receiver. The problem with Kelce this week is he's priced as the number one wide receiver. He's 7,900, and man, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. That is a number one receiver play, and I would generally like to play other guys at that price point that aren't tight ends. So that's why game stacks are fun, because game stacks are going to force me to play Travis Kelce, because I'm going to want to stack him with Patrick Mahomes. There's going to be pretty low ownership on that stack. And then you could run it back with the Colts, Pittman. Pittman's questionable right now. If you want to
practicing, he was practicing this week, so let's see.
Yeah, I think he's going to play. Right now, I'm not putting any cap on him, which I usually do if I'm concerned about an injury.
Okay.
So Pittman's a good run back. Elshon Doolin, he's not projecting that well this week. Yeah, I wouldn't touch that.
Okay. Let's get off of that.
Yeah, I think Pittman's the only play on the run back there. I also really like Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster, 5,500, nice pivot off of Kelce, or you could do the double stack and play him. People are going to be on him.
You can run back with Schuster.
No, I'm saying if you're running a double Mahomes stack.
Okay.
If you're running the two Kansas City guys, Schuster. I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling is also playable. I wouldn't play him outside of this stack, but he's a good option to kind of get you off the chalk. He's going to be under 5% ownership. Schuster, I think people are going to be on. They're going to be playing a lot of him, not just in this game, but outside of this game. His price, he's only 5,500, and I think they're going to go to him a lot. So if they could shut Kelsey down, I mean, he's going to be where they're going to end up, where Mahomes is going to be throwing the ball. If you want to get crazy, I think it's realistic to build a stack that doesn't have Kelsey, that goes Schuster, Scatling, and then run it back with Pittman. I don't know if I'm going to be brave enough to do that. I'm definitely going to want Travis Kelsey because, again, I don't think I'm going to play a lot of Travis Kelsey outside of this game. So if I am playing this game, if I am attacking it, I'm going to want to get my share and exposure on Kelsey. But I don't think I'm going to look for him in like a single entry tournament, even though, he could smash at tight end. And I don't think there's a lot of competition this week at tight end. You do have Mark Andrews, but Mark Andrews is in the same price point. $1,000 less, but you're still spending almost $7,000 on a tight end. The play nobody wants to touch, who has a comparable ceiling to those guys. I mean, albeit about 10 points less than Travis Kelsey, but at 4,800, man, Kyle Pitts, the guy sucks. Like, he doesn't suck, but his fantasy play sucks, and I've been trying to get away from him, but his it's so hard to walk away from good opportunity at low ownership. And Kyle Pitts is getting targets. Kyle Pitts is getting looks. Kyle Pitts is getting elite usage. He just hasn't put up fantasy points. I mean, week 1 he had 7 targets. Last week he only had 3, which is a little concerning. But they were playing the Rams. I think he's going to get at least 5 targets this week, and 40 yards, and you got to hope for a touchdown, or you got to hope that they just start feeding him. But clearly, Drake London is the go-to on the Falcons. So, but those are your high-end tight ends. Kind of get those out of the way.
That Kyle Pitts, so year long, folks, like he was what, top 3 tight end, right? Year long.
Yeah, man. I mean, people were getting him around the early 3rd round.
Where do you see
they got
that?
me feeling horrible right now.
Right, exactly. But
I didn't
–
draft any of him, just for the record.
His pricing is so low through the rest, like he could be your sleeper then as well. I mean, that's a lot of targets for a guy who's not producing right now. You see, I mean, that's either going to go down or we're going to see something happen, right?
I mean, Atlanta's projected for 20 points, so 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns in that game for the Atlanta side. I mean, they're going up against the helpless, Seahawks, who I know they won their first game against Denver, but
week 2, Gino was back down to earth a little bit there, right?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it is Geno Smith. I mean, there's nothing to get. That's a game I'm obviously not touching from either side. I do like Mariota a little bit, but anyways, back to the game at hand, the Kansas City Colts. I mean, I think I've said pretty much all that there is to say on it. Schuster's a great play this week all around. I mean, I might even consider him in cash. Like, that's how much I'm liking Schuster. No, I think I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. I'm going to put the brakes on that comment. But Kelsey's great. Just the price is high. But no, you're gonna pivot a lot off of the field by actually playing Kelsey and Mahomes. And it's Kelsey and Mahomes.
Okay.
I mean, they're expensive, and but they're elite players who can absolutely. It's one of those deals at the end of the week. It wouldn't shock me if the $1 million winner had Mahomes and Kelsey in it, and everyone going like, "Of course, why didn't I do that?" But the price isn't there. There is a lot of savings this week, I think. Though I think there are a lot of low cost options that could make a lot of these higher end stacks work. All right, let's see. So I mentioned Eckler. Okay. Hold on here. I just got to get my sorting system going here.
Yeah.
Actually, fantasy labs right now.
This here is week 1 of the show. I'll go back to the drawing board here and be ready to help with week 2 of our show. Of course, we're talking about
and by all means, if people are listening and you want to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Larcher Than Life is my Twitter handle. That's LARCHER THANLIFE, like the Backstreet Boys song.
And on the same reign, if you want to follow the show and see when we're doing the show and get some updates and whatnot, that's at Larcher Lorensen on Twitter. We are Sports Attic there. It's but at Larcher Lorensen.
And feel free to hit me up on Sitter Starts. Anything
Sitter
really.
Start. Oh yeah, I thought that was a new social media like messaging system. Sitter
Yeah.
Start.
Yeah. It's where you get a babysitter so you can go to wrestling shows. Uh, and by the way, if you don't listen to our other program, we're both wrestling fans, and basically, I take my winnings and I use it on wrestling. And I went to Tokyo. I went to the Wrestle Kingdom 12 a couple years
Yep.
ago. A lot of fun.
Did you see?
Anyways,
Did you see that Japan's soon
yeah,
opening up everything? No restrictions anymore. So when we pull it big this weekend here, Al,
that's
we're
right.
going to Tokyo.
We're going to
Wrestle Kingdom.
Tokyo, baby.
And if we're going to Tokyo for Wrestle Kingdom, we're going to the Rice Bowl because that happens the day
Yeah,
before as well. Which is
absolutely. So it's right in that
Tokyo.
same period.
It's Japan's professional American Rules Football League in their championship.
Yeah, good old Rice Bowl. The Tokyo Dome, the green egg, the giant egg dome.
Absolutely.
All right, so 50.5 was the KC Indianapolis game. The next game on the list is, and we're almost to the game I want to talk about, which is Philly Washington. Next on the list is the Rams versus the Arizona Cardinals. Man, I'm not high on this game at all. Maybe I should be. Maybe this is going to be a flaw. But I think pricing is really high. The studs like Cooper Cup. If I'm going to play Cooper Cup, I'm probably going to find ways to play him in other games. Dorich has been a good value in Arizona. I think he's a good value again this week. He was last week's kind of value play. And I think you could go back to the well on him. That's Greg Dorich of the Arizona Cardinals. He's filling in for Moore with Rondell Moore out. He's taken that role, and he's been running with it. 4,300. He's a good steal. He's probably going to catch some ownership, but right now he is projected under 10% ownership. So Greg Dorich again could be a nice value play. Marquise Brown. I mean, the ceiling is 6,000. It's an okay price point. I don't feel like Kyle Murray has been looking all that great. This game, by the way, is going to have good pacing to it. It's going to have a good tempo. There's going to be a lot of plays. There's going to be a lot of fantasy equity. So I do think if you are playing, say, 150 teams, even in a 20 max, you're definitely going to want to have exposure on this game. Just because I'm down on it doesn't mean I'm not going to touch it. I'm absolutely going to find ways to play it. Kyle Murray threw the ball 49 times last week. Only put up 24 DraftKings points. 277 yards. Week one, he only put up 20 DraftKings points. I just don't feel like this team's flowing right now. And now you're going up against the Los Angeles Rams, and they got a good defense, and I think they're going to be able to really control this game. And I mean, it's just the Rams have been giving up a lot of points to wide receiver. So that's how you're going to definitely want to attack it. That Dorich. I think Zach Ertz is probably a good play. 4,600, pitting him with Murray. Maybe Murray and Dortch. I mean, that's ugly. That's not a high ceiling play, but you're getting a guy who's 4,300. You're getting a guy who's 4,600, and then you're getting Kyle Murray, who could run. He could get some equity with his legs, and if he's having a big day, I mean, if he's putting up a lot of yards and throwing a lot of balls, those two guys are going to be involved. And they don't really have like the dominant number one right now. Wide receiver that's like a go-to. So I mean that could be a good cheap stack, and it's a good cheap stack at low ownership, and you're saving so much money. You can obviously easily run back Cooper Cup, and there's your ceiling. And so I guess now I'm like talking myself into getting excited about this stack a little more.
There you go.
Because I do think like, yeah, if you're going to save that much money, Cooper Cup's right there. He's the ceiling. I just wasn't seeing the ceiling really with the Arizona Cardinals, but Cooper Cup is your ceiling. Let me see if there's any players I'm missing here. AJ Green, dude's dust. You know, he's 102 years old. Clark drafted him. Little Clark drafted him in his 8th grade fantasy football pool back in the 90s. So AJ Green, you know, not worth really touching. And then Rondell Moore, obviously questionable. I don't think he's going to play, which is why Greg Dortch is a value. And then Marquise Brown, I mean, your highest priced wide receiver, $6,000. If you go the other way, if you go Stafford, you're saving a little money at quarterback. You're going to want to play Cup. And then if you stack them, Allen Robinson's 5,700. Allen Robinson's going to have under 5% ownership. Allen Robinson has scared a lot of people. You know, Twitter's definitely been like, you know, where's Allen Robinson? And as Bears fans, you know, we could relate. But,
Yeah.
you know, week 1, he only had 2 targets. The Buffalo Bills took him out of the game.
He had
last
a
week
touchdown out of the gate last week, right?
Yeah, last week he had 5 targets, caught 4 of them, went 53 yards and a touchdown.
I think he had a touchdown taken back too by penalty.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I don't think I've watched the 22s on that game yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Allen Robinson's fine. Like he's playable there, and that's gonna that stack actually gonna have really low ownership. Stafford, Cup, Robinson. The tight end's also in a great spot. Tyler Higbee, you know, he's probably gonna get about 10% ownership. But ceiling of 14 points. Man, there's just a lot of really good tight end plays this week. Usually I just punt it tight end, don't give a shit. But this week I feel like every tight end is projecting for 10 points with a 15-point ceiling. So I usually don't play tight end in the slot in the flex position. But this week I'm going to have to consider it. You know, I'm going to generate a bunch of teams, and then I'm probably going to generate like 300 teams without tight ends in the flex, and then I'm going to generate 300 teams with tight ends in the flex, and I'm just going to kind of look at the two and see if which way I like better. If there's tight end teams, double tight end teams, I'm getting excited about. You know, it only hits like twice a year in the Millie Maker, the double tight end play, but I think its ownership is somewhere like 15%. So you have a huge advantage on the field for doing it. It's just not likely to hit, and it's generally kind of
What do you think?
a waste of a play.
Once or twice a year?
Yeah, once or twice a year, I think is
What it
fair.
seemed
You'll
like,
see the
yeah.
double tight end play win somebody a lot of money, and I think a lot of people play it and lose a lot of money. I generally don't like the play, but this week I am going to look at it. Like I said,
Yeah.
you know, because you might even get Kelsey and then punt at your flex position, or put Kelsey in the flex, or you buy 2 cheap tight ends, and you know they're producing just as well as some of these $6,000 wide receivers. And then that allows you to spend up because there's a lot of ceiling on this slate. You know, Jefferson, Cup, CMC, JT, like there's legit ceiling. This isn't a slate where like last week there wasn't a lot of ceiling, and it paid out, man. Like last week, my number 1 running back was Mixon. The only running back to put up like over 25 points was Mixon. So, you know, it was just a week where like you played contrarian, you won a lot of money.
Mixon's ownership is
I had a nice profitable
roof, right?
week.
Mixon's ownership this week is going to be through the roof.
But
I don't even think they're in the stack, are they? Like 17.4 is what I see over here from Pro Football Focus.
Yeah, Mixon about 15% ownership. That's not crazy.
Okay.
7,600. I mean, the price point is all right. Like everybody's going to want to spend down because here's what's happening, Clark. Joe Mixon, and let me just pull up a
A
comparison
conspiracy?
so I can make sure. Yeah,
Yep.
conspiracy theory.
Yep.
So I make sure I'm not talking out of my ass, which I will. Like if you listen to this podcast, I will sometimes be talking out of my ass.
We're gonna
Like I
do,
said, I am not a professional by any means.
and we're gonna do one more game, right? You want to do one more game here as well?
Yeah. I'll get to my favorite game of the week, which would be next. Yeah, because we are almost out of time. Um, so David Montgomery is 5,900, and who are we talking about? Mixon.
Yeah, Mixon. He's
Mixon
7,600.
7,600, and when you look at their ceiling, Mixon's ceiling is about 3 points higher than Montgomery. When you look at the projection, Montgomery's projecting about a point and a half less than Mixon. So people are just going to want to save the money. So Mixon might be that's going to keep his ownership down, uh, and David Montgomery's ownership is going to be high because of that very reason. And I think David Montgomery is going to be one of those players you're going to want to pivot against. Don't buy into it. The Bears are a mess. The offensive line's a mess. And if everybody's going that way, there's so many options in that price point that could beat David Montgomery that the risk isn't worth taking. So just real quickly before I move into to the big game of the week, to the game I think is going to be a great tournament play in that Philly Washington game. Just looking at running back, kind of sort by price here. Yeah, Leonard Fournette is the other guy who's going to catch a lot of ownership. He's I think a lot of Leonard Fournette and David Montgomery. Don't be one of those people. If you're going to play one, don't play the other in the same lineup. Make sure you diversify.
Okay.
Javonte Williams projects comparable in that price point. Antonio Gibson, who I don't like all that well this week, does project similar. AJ Dillon, man, Tampa Bay is going to stuff up the Green Bay run game. They're going to shut Aaron Jones down. The best route to beating Tampa Bay this week, which is an ugly game. I don't want to touch it, but I think AJ Dillon is going to get a lot of passing equity, and he's projecting really well. So AJ Dillon at 6,000, and there's a guy who's under 10% ownership. And then I mentioned it at the top of the show at 5,500. I think Miles Sanders. Right now he's only at about 12% ownership. Like I like that play a lot, and that's gonna again save you a lot of money off the rest of uh, the cost of a lot of things. I think Miles Sanders could beat David Montgomery, and you're to get a lot less ownership, and you're to save a couple bucks. So it's just my thought at running back. But getting to the main event, getting into the play of the week. This is a game you're going to want to attack the most in tournament plays. The Philadelphia Eagles have been on a tear lately. They've been looking fantastic. The Washington Redskins have been playing offense. They've been throwing the ball. They've been getting it done. But they're a team that you could find a ceiling with. There's players there. Jalen Hurts, 7,600. He's still too low price. His ownership is under 10%. Even if it's bad, even if it gets up to 15%, you're still going to want to be on Jalen Hurts in this game. The tight end, I think, is in a great position. Dallas Goedert. He's under 10% ownership. Um, he has one of the better ceilings on the week. He's 4,700. Again, a lot of equity at tight end this week. I think you look at that. But A.J. Brown is in a really good spot. AJ Brown is a dominant football player who, when he balls, man, like you can't stop him. And he's been playing well for the Eagles, but he's only put up week one. He put up almost 30 DraftKings points against the Detroit Lions. I think this is a similar situation. Last week, the Vikings shut him down. He only got 12 points, but that was just an ugly game. Uh, 13 targets week 1, 8 targets week 2. He's at a price where he should be. It's an appropriate price. You're not getting a savings at him at 7,300, but the fact that the field's only on him right now at about 7% just doesn't sit well with me. I think it's vulgar. I think it's disgusting. I think fantasy players should be ashamed of themselves that they're not building this stack. I think this is and I might even consider a single stack, just going, because Jalen Hurts gives you all the equity with his legs, right? So you don't have to get there with his arm. So you only need a single stack as opposed to a double stack. And as much as I like running double stacks, it feels good to just be able to do a single stack once in a while. Man, I hit a button and I just lost everything there.
What single what is the why a single stack versus a double stack sometimes? Just to
a double stack,
you're really pigeonholing yourself into those games.
When you play a double stack, you're getting a really nice advantage on the field. There's still it's been shown time and time again that a lot of big tournaments are won with double stacks, with game stacks in general. Double stacking one side of the ball with one offense and then having the run back. I mean, your construction has to be built around that in general. But unless cash is a different story. But when you're talking tournaments, you have to have the correlation, and you have to play the stack. When you have a quarterback who runs, who's a dual threat, you can single stack because they might throw for 200 yards. So, one of their receivers goes for 120 yards and a touchdown. Meanwhile, they run for 70 yards and a touchdown. You're getting there with their legs and their arm. When you have a quarterback like Tom Brady, who's not going to run, but he might throw for 300-400 yards, you now have two receivers who are gonna get a lot of the equity, a lot of the yardage. Joe Burrow is a guy I consistently double stack. Josh Allen, he's a guy you could single stack, he fits both roles. But that offense has been so dominant, I would want to double stack him. Kyle Murray is a guy you could single stack, but I again like the double stack. Aaron Rodgers would be a double stack, but don't touch that. Don't touch Aaron Rodgers this week. Don't touch that game. There's no receivers. Okay. No receivers are playing in that game, so stay away from that. Tualoa, another guy. He just keeps throwing the ball to his guys, and it's great. It's great in stacks when you know who they're throwing to. And I think it's pretty safe to say A.J. Brown is going to be throwing the ball a lot this week, and Jalen Hurts is going to run. And then on the run back, Curtis Samuel right now is leading the Washington Redskins in targets. He's 5,100. It's not a sneaky play, 14%, 15% projected ownership. He has the highest projected ownership in this game of the pass catchers. Actually, let me pull the flex so I get everybody's ownership here. Yeah, he's the highest projected player in the game. So Curtis Samuel's not sneaking past anybody. Curtis Samuel has eaten a lot into Terry McLaurin's production. Terry McLaurin has under 1% ownership projected right now. Terry McLaurin is still Terry McLaurin. He still has a real ceiling of about 20 points. 6,400, more expensive than Curtis Samuel. Over $1,000 more than Curtis Samuel. That's why everyone's playing Curtis Samuel. It's a smarter play, but contrarian. Terry McLaurin may not be that bad of a bet running it back. You could also, if you think Washington wins this game, maybe they do it with the legs of Antonio Gibson, and they just run the hell out of the ball. So you could stack Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown and then run it back with Antonio Gibson. I think that makes sense. I'm just going to pull the defense up right now. I can't remember if Philly has – I feel like Philly does have a good run defense, but it's not sticking out right now.
Yeah. No.
Of course, everything's frozen.
And of course, Al, while you're doing that, I just want to thank all of the listeners for joining in on this first episode here. We want to do this every Friday. we'll be back again next week, and we're not done here yet today, of course. But every Friday, grab this podcast. It'll become available for your drive in, for your commute. I think it's great, or maybe grab it for your commute home on Friday. Throw it down. Heck, a lot of you folks, we're sitting there in front of a computer somewhere. Just throw that in the ear. Or if you're doing some hard work, instead of listening to the radio, throw on our podcast. You know, a lot of
There you go. Sell it, Clark. Absolutely.
That's well, I mean, that's how I like to do my podcast listening is on Fridays. If I don't get to it on Friday, then I'm struggling on Sunday morning. You know, Al, I got the kids, I got everything going on Sunday mornings before football, and I try to go spend 2 or 3 hours last minute. Well, if you get your listening in a little bit early, and Al, I know that you've got a lot more research into this than I do, of course, and that's why you're the one with the show today, running this show here. We're getting all of the information from you, but I just like this show is for everybody. Like, listen to get your info. I take down some notes while I'm listening to the podcast, and then I go and I look those players up. I run the simulations, I run the stats, I do it all. But if I don't get to it on Friday, like the last 2 weeks, Al, it caught up on me, and by Sunday morning, I'm scrambling that things aren't going well with the family because I'm not paying attention to the kids, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway.
So week 1, the Philadelphia Eagles gave up 45 fantasy points to the Detroit Lions on the ground. The running backs put up 48 points combined. So Swift probably had a great game that game. Williams probably had some equity there. Last week, they held the Minnesota Vikings to 12 points. So they're definitely beatable. The Eagles are definitely beatable on the ground. They're also very weak in the air, which is probably how people are going to look at that game. So I would say go Gibson or go McLaurin or go whoever the other option, Curtis Samuel, as your run back. And I would go heavy this week on A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Like, I'm going to say it right now that that's going to be the Larcher lock of the week. We're going to go Jalen Hurts. We're going to go Brown. And I'm going to run it back with I'm just gonna say Gibson. I think I don't want to eat the chalk on Samuel, even though the price point is sweet. Gibson 6,400. It's a running back. He's got a real ceiling. He's got low ownership. So I'm gonna run the Washington game back with the running back with Gibson, and I'm gonna have the Eagles. Man, I just see the Eagles dominating this game. So why would Washington run? So that's a bad idea. I'm definitely 100% on the Brown Hurts stack. Do what you want on the run back. You know what? I'm running back Johan Dotson, 4,600, under 5% ownership. He's been seeing targets. He's been having some good games. I like that. So that I'm sticking with that. That's my final answer. That's going to be my, 5 targets the last 2 games, 58 yards and a touchdown last week, 40 yards and 2 touchdowns week 1. So, look, he's put up 18 and 17 fantasy points. Jahan Dotson is your run back with the Washington Redskins. I'm sorry, the Washington Commanders, forgive me. And A.J. Brown and Hurts is the stack of the week. So there's your stack of the week. And good luck to everybody.
That again, Brown and Hurts.
Yeah, Brown Hurts.
Of the week. Oh, I love hearing that. I think I drafted Hurts in a couple of leagues, year-long leagues, and this is the year to make or break for him. So far so good. And now
he was Brown, a no-brainer. He was a no-brainer. It was just if you wanted to get him, like
you had to draft him a little right.
Where he was going in the drafts was just a hard spot for me to take him, but there's no question he was a great snag at the quarterback position.
So, yeah, that's great. I like that as your stack of the week. That says it gives me a chance in a league where I didn't think I had a chance. So,
yeah, I'm most likely going to play that in my single entry tournament play.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm probably going to want to try and find like a little more ceiling in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe get one of the high priced running backs in there. Um, Although I'm not sold on any one high priced running back right now, which is kind of a problem. There's no one I have real conviction on. I feel safer saying, Justin Jefferson's going to have a great week uh, than any of the wide receivers. Um, so I might go like Justin Jefferson, try to find him in there, um, and then squeeze in the rest. Punt at tight end, go with Irv Smith, and then maybe punt at the third wide receiver position. Uh, and try to find a punt that doesn't have a lot of ownership. That's key too. Like make sure you're playing a player that has under 7% ownership in your lineup. Make sure your lineups are under 13% ownership collectively. Like if you take an average of all the ownership, divide it by the number of players, make sure that number is under 13%. That's key. Uh, yeah, yeah, I'm feeling good at it.
That's great.
I haven't even looked at defenses yet. There's probably going to be a good punt defense. Don't play the chalk. That's another place to save on your chalk exposure. If everyone's playing the same defense, just please don't do it.
You're talking defenses, Al, and I know we're getting to the end of this, but last night, that Cleveland Browns game, that touchdown at the end of the game,
right at the end,
saved me in a couple spots. Absolutely saved,
including the Larcher and Lorensen collective in the
my
FFPC game.
FFPC, yeah, and it got me. I still have a fighting chance against Ross in the Ross League, Al. So,
Man, that guy's scoring system. I don't know what's
I'm
up
fighting
with that
from
thing.
behind over there. Oh, yeah.
I feel like every time I have a player that goes like mega off, and I look and like he's got like 20, he's got 23 points in Ross's league.
He better be
I never
listening to this show. He better be listening to this show, and he better have gotten to this point of it. And I want to hear from you, Ross. That's wow. That guy's scoring system. I agree. Al,
Yeah, we were
touch on. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we were like the FFPC game. We're in the FFPC Players Championship game. We're sharing a team, and I think you mentioned maybe finding a different defense this week, and I'm like, no. Let's stick with the Browns. They're playing, the helpless, the crappy. Who are they playing yesterday? Pittsburgh.
Right.
They're playing fucking Mitch Trubinsky. We're Bears fans. We know how horrible that is.
Yeah.
And I looked like in the fourth quarter, and we were at 0 points on defense.
I know.
And I'm like, oh man,
should have listened to Clark, and then they
should have listened to Clark. And then that last second defensive touchdown, I'm like, boom, genius.
Let me just say that so far the co-ownership of a team, because a lot of times, when you own something with somebody else, things go sour. So far, 3 weeks in, 2 weeks in, I feel like we're doing pretty well. I'm enjoying it. I'd call us overachievers, even though we second highest score of the week last week, Al, and lost the game. Oh, damn
it. Yep. And I'm a little concerned with Connor this week, by the way.
Yep. You staying away from Houston Bears, the Texan versus the Bears. I have to say I agree. And now after looking at Pro Football Focus, they have their data, their beta for their data there, that their data beta for week 3 and their simulations. The highest scoring QB will be Buffalo's quarterback.
Yeah.
And you know who the second lowest scoring TD on the on a percentage of the simulations there? With Justin Fields as the highest scoring player.
Justin Fields.
They are second to the last when it comes to that. Yeah.
Yeah. I have him in the Scott Fish Bowl. He's my quarterback too. And my third string quarterback is Marcus Mariota. And I really have to have a come to Jesus meeting because, like, if Justin Fields is going to have a great week, this is the week he's going to have it.
Yep.
But I know Marcus Mariota just projects better than Justin Fields, both in like floor, ceiling, like every measurable category. So every ounce of me, like the right move is to play Marcus Mariota, but there's something in my gut because I'm a Bears fan that makes me believe that against the helpless, the worst defensive line in football, one of the worst offensive lines in football could actually play a little bit, and Justin Fields could have.
You got to fight that feeling out there, folks. You got to fight. You got to fight that feeling.
Yeah, don't do Homer stuff, guys. Don't do it.
But the problem is, if you fight that feeling and you cut them, the next week he's going to blow up, and then it turns around. You know, it's one of those things. Maybe we have to cut him, Al, in order for him to succeed in real football. You know?
Maybe. A couple guys I'm out on this week. Notably, I would say Derek Carr. Just I don't like the game environment. It's Tennessee. Man, that game's going to be slow and not a lot of points to it. Geno Smith, that's a no-brainer against the Falcons. You know, I said it earlier, Matt Ryan. He's just old, tired. He's old, he's tired, and he works with children. He works with fucking children. So, you know, to quote CM Punk, I think Matt Ryan is out there. Trevor Lawrence, that's a tough one, man. I kind of wanted to play TL, but I just couldn't get there. The numbers just didn't project well enough for me. Jameis Winston's a little banged up. I just don't feel it. And again, a low-scoring game. Mac Jones, like, I don't want to touch the Patriots. Tom Brady, who's he throwing to? Like, who is the man throwing to? Russell Gage is going to be wide receiver 1 for Tom Brady this week. And that might be actually a good play, you know, to build stacks, to throw in your stacks as your like wide receiver 2 or 3. Justin Gage is worth looking at because that's all Tom. I mean, who's Tom Brady throwing to? I mean, really,
what a bad week to get suspended as a Tampa wide receiver.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and I need it in the Scott Fishbowl, man. I needed Evans.
You need that appeal to go through.
I need the appeal, man.
No idea. Oh, that's crazy. I like it.
all
That's
right, buddy.
On. Yeah, Al, great work with this here first show. Nice work over there. Your research is impeccable. Is that the word?
Impeccable?
Yep, that's the word. Impeccable.
I don't know if that's the word.
What else you got on the way out? Good night.
I'm not
next week.
Huh?
What do you have? Is it just good night and we'll see you next week?
Yeah. I'm not touching Russell Wilson either.
No.
Let's see here. Just who's the highest projected owner wide receiver? Let's see what we're gonna do with it. Looks like Stephon Diggs is your highest projected owner wide receiver.
Yeah,
I'm gonna play him. I'm probably gonna. He's about 20% ownership. I think I'm gonna be right there. Brandon Cooks is your other highly owned wide receiver. I'm gonna go underweight on him. All right. Good night.
Yep. Good night.